Hello and welcome back to BitBar. This will be episode 8 of the red tent restoration that we're working on here. Figured it was time to do an update video. I know it's been a long time since I've posted anything, but I'll tell you what, it's been a very crazy summer. Between working on these 3 red tents, camping with the family, doing other things around the house, that sort of thing. Anyway, it's been very, very busy. And I haven't been able to put quite as much time into this restoration as I'd hoped, but we've made a ton of progress. So just to give you kind of a heads up with where we're at this point, all of the black pieces, so all the bodies, are basically ready to go. Aside from the control panels, I do need to do some slight cleanup on the bottom of those things. But the bodies are all primed, or at the very least bonded. I think I have one side of one that still needs to be primed. The control panel frames that the control panels go into, those are all bondoed, smoothed, sanded, ready for priming. All of the pieces, the leg uprights, the crossbars inside, everything there has been sanded down and is ready to actually be painted. And I've started to work on the red pieces, and that's besides the update, which again is long overdue. I am doing the red things a little bit differently than how I did the bodies. So I wanted to go through and show you a little bit about how I'm tackling these things. They don't have quite the same requirements. The bodies, they had all this damage along here that really had to be taken care of, and they were large, pieces of flat area that required all that work. In the last video, we went through and showed you with our special guest how we actually tackled that and got those things ready for paint. So in this video, we're going to focus mostly on the red pieces. Now, I have finished the crossbars, the top bars that go across the very top, that then the tents sexually, the sort of the slanted part, the triangular parts, go onto. These are actually all ready to go as well. These things just need to be primed as well. But again, I kind of tackled these in a little bit different way. So this actually was very similar to how I did the black pieces, since it's this large sort of expanse area. So a lot of it's just coating the whole thing in filler and sanding and recoating and sanding and recoating and sanding. So those are basically ready to go for primer. For the triangle bits, for the most part, they don't need a lot of Bondo. There's a couple dings here and there, but for the most part, what I'm having to do is take the original pieces, like this one, this is one I've not really started on much. Taking these, I have to sand down the texture that's on them, because we're going to put a brand new texture over the top of it, and we need to get the original texture off as much as possible. Plus, in sanding them down, I'm also able to find any of the small dents and that sort of thing that do need to be filled. It's really kind of spot filling, though. It's not huge sections. I'm not puttying the entire side of this thing and sanding it down. At least, yeah, I don't think I have any that are that bad. But there's some that did require some Bondo work along the front edge, which I think just sees a lot more kind of abuse just from players and from being moved around and that sort of thing. So what I'm doing to knock that down, rather than doing it all by hand, so I've been using my palm sander to hit the flat areas, and I'm just using 80 grit on it right now, And that's been helping knock down the texture on here, on these larger areas, much faster than doing it all by hand. And what I end up with, or at least when I'm done with that stage, so starting from brand new, haven't done anything with it yet, hit it with a palm sander on all the flat surfaces, just keeping, again, just like we were doing with the sanding blocks. You know, so in keeping with that, keep the lines nice and straight on it. I've been doing the same thing with a palm sander, which is just running it in those same crosshatch lines and then running it back the opposite direction. So it's very similar to doing the block sanding, but it's not quite as labor intensive, which again has been a big help. So finish sanding these things down, get the flat areas done, and then point out any of the places where I might need to use some body filler. So here's one that I've got pretty well sanded down. I'm not sure if the texture is going to show up on camera very well, but this is all very, very smooth now. Very smooth. So, for example, and then in these areas where I've knocked it down a bit more, I've actually got a little divot there that I'm going to fill with Bondo, or sorry, body filler. So I've gone through, noted all those places. If I didn't need to do any filler work, then I just left it, just sanded smooth. But places like here, places like here, you know, that's the only two spots on this piece that I need just a tiny bit of filler just to smooth that out. You know, there are other interesting things around here too. There's these stamp points on the corners. All four corners have them, and that's just from the original stamping that Nintendo did. Maybe those are little weld points as well. Actually, kind of feels like they are. So that's where the pieces were actually put together. And for the most part, the pieces do just require just a handful of spots to be filled. This one actually I need to knock it down a little bit further, I think. No, actually that one's all right. No, I'm probably gonna knock that one down a little bit further. This one is one of my earliest attempts at doing some filler, and now this one was the one that I tackled before I spoke with Sam. So I learned a lot of things about that, about using filler and how to tackle these things. So basically, you know, I'm going to go through here and refill this. But again, you've got to knock this all the way down to bare metal so that you can use filler on it. You can't use, or you don't want to use filler on painted surfaces. You want to do it on bare metal. So I've got some additional filler work to do. But basically, I'm just sort of staging up an area here where I finished sanding these things down. This one needed a little bit more work. A little thing here, little thing here. But again, for the most part, these things are in great shape. I mean, they're all pretty straight as far as, you know, the basic shape. They're not all bowed and bent out of shape, so they shouldn't have a problem going back when we get to reassembly. But yeah, you know, little filler spots and that sort of thing. So what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and start in on a fresh one and just show you, kind of, probably speed it up, but show you what I've been doing on them to get them ready for this point. And then talk about next steps. And yeah, this is probably going to be a relatively short video since you know, you're not going to want to see me sand these things completely down, but I thought I'd show you again the technique that I'm kind of using, since it is a little bit different than the other pieces that I have done before on film. So yeah, so that's kind of like a little staging area. Oh, well, so the summer, in addition to being fairly busy with other things, I did have a new acquisition, which right about there. So yeah, we've added our first pinball machine to the garage here. Judge Dredd. I've actually got some great plans for stuff that I'm going to do with this. This one is a factory. There's no customizations on it. It's just generally in really nice shape, and I do have some plans for some work on it and mods, and I figured, I'll go ahead and share those with you guys as well when we get there. But yeah, this is Judge Dredd. I've been having an absolute blast playing it. I swear it has not been distracting me too terribly much for the restoration. Again, I have not tackled any of the mods that I want to do for it. The Dead World mod is a classic one. That's kind of makes it play the way that it originally, the original prototypes played. Go through. I'm gonna add some new rubbers. Right now, it's got black rubbers everywhere, which is great. Apparently for location, for being played on locations. Not the preferable ones for home use. So I'm learning a lot about pinball machines, but yeah. So I put new rubbers on it. Got some plastic protectors that I'm going to throw on here. Yeah, stuff to do to it. Anyway, we'll get into Judge Dredd later. That'll be another series forthcoming. But yeah, this thing's in pretty darn good shape, and for being out in the world and being played for the last 93 this thing came out, so roughly the last 21 years. It's old enough to drink. Anyway, so yeah, here we go. Let's get into taking care of this red piece and see how it goes. So that knocks down the texture pretty quick. I've got one little spot here, which is a pretty small little dent. I'm gonna, and actually there's one here on the corner too. So to show you basically what I'm doing with this thing is just really getting into this area and again clearing off a good chunk, maybe an inch or so on either side of the damage that I'm gonna need to put some filler in. And just knocking down all the paint around there. So there we go. I'll go ahead and probably drop a little dab in there, and this corner here is pretty dinged up, so should be able to smooth that out pretty well. Actually, I guess I shouldn't mention that this isn't the final step I'm doing to smooth these things out. This is really just to knock down as much of the texture as I can, and with the least amount of labor required. And then what I'm doing is going back in with a Scotch pad and really looking for areas that might still be a little shiny. Because basically that's what we're doing, is getting rid of the texture and then getting rid of any shiny. We have to have a nice matte finish to be able to paint on top of. So yeah, just knocking the rest of it down with the Scotch pad, which unfortunately is manual, but you know what? If I'd done that entire panel by hand, it would have taken me a heck of a lot longer, and I'd have less energy to be able to hit it with a Scotch pad. So yeah, again, when you're done, you're looking for a nice matte finish. And the other thing I was doing, kind of when I was working with the, actually that goes out a little bit further. Let me hit that one. The other thing I was doing was feathering it a little bit. So you want to have as smooth a transition between the metal and the paint as possible, just so that obviously you don't want a big line there to show up after you painted it. So yeah, I'm going to take this back a little bit further because there's another little divot, and since I'm doing this one, I may as well go ahead and do that one as well. A lot of these I'm finding, once I actually get them smoothed down so that it's just bare metal, a lot of the damage really kind of vanishes. Part of that is because the paint itself is actually, because of the height of it, is actually you know, kind of accentuating the problem. Once it gets smoothed out, that's already a ton better. There's still, you know, still definitely patch it, especially since I've done all the work now. But, you know, just to say is just smoothing out those areas, so small blemishes in the paint, even potentially in the metal. Once we get these things primed and textured, a lot of these things are probably not even going to show up, which is, you know, which is great. So this might be slightly overkill on some of these smaller ones, but I'm really trying to do a good job. And again, I'm already here doing the work, so let's go ahead and just see if we can get it done as reasonably close to right as possible. That'll give you some idea of imagine how much work that would be if you were doing it all by hand. I mean, it's, you know, probably due to swap out material here, but you can see it's a fair amount of work. A lot of sanding, like the rest of this project. Still, I need to go back through the detail areas around the inside here, even though those are going to be hidden. These pieces here as well. This by the coin mech and this by the instructions. Still need to knock those down. They are going to get painted. You know, a lot of these have corrosion built up here, or places where at least the paint has been flaked off. This is the bottom part of the tent, and so when it swings up, those tend, you know, those corners here and then the back side of here, as it's closed, tends to kind of rub on the rest of the body there. So those areas need to be cleaned up. Now the inside, I don't need to do the crazy sanding with. So the inside, all I need to do is I need to remove this decal because it's going to be painted, and it's stupid to paint over decals. And then it has this nice foam that runs around the inside to protect the glass that sets up against here for the monitor. This will all need to be removed as well, and then I'll use Goo Gone or whatever, sand it maybe down a little bit to get rid of that too, because that's going to be painted as well, and we don't want that. Just, I mean, that'd be terrible just to paint over that. So anyway, and we'll figure out something else to put back there to protect the glass. So the inside, they are going to get painted, but since they're not going to be not part of the outside, I'm not as worried about any imperfections and things like that, or sanding down the slight texture that's in here. So I'm just going to scuff these with a Scotch pad. You just, you know, take the Scotch pad and just knock down the shininess a little bit. I don't know if that's showing up there, but just basically get rid of the shiny. So it's work to get it done, but not nearly so bad. I don't know if that's going to show up or not, but you know, just this area, just knock down some of the shininess, make it nice and matte, and then that'll give the paint a nice tooth to grab onto. Yeah, so these pieces here next. And then just like if I were running across a place where there was damage, where I was going to put some filler, if I run across any places that have corrosion, I'm going to spend a little bit of extra time on those places, feathering out the edge of the paint there as well. Like here just had a little bit of it. So I really want to get in there and make sure to knock all that rust off, because we don't want to paint over rust. All right. How's that for exciting? And messy. Every time I walk in the house, it looks like I just murdered somebody. Covered in red. Then, stupid story. So I'm standing in the kitchen washing my hands, and I step away, and my dog, I've got Irish wolfhounds, and they're big. So one of them does, you know, what boy dogs especially just do, walks over and just sticks his face right in my crotch, and pulls his head back, and he's just covered in red. It's like, awesome. Anyway, silly little anecdote. Yeah, this one's looking pretty good. So you can see, again, fair amount of work and sanding. And that was using power tools, and that still took a good long while. But my goal is to get these things today. I have got 6 of them. 3, you know, and a half. I still need to Scotch-Brite this one. 3 basically ready for Bondo, and a half ready for Bondo, and then 2 more. And I've been going at this all day, and it's already past midday. So lots of work. I'm going to go ahead and finish this thing, Scotch-Briting, so saving you guys from, you know, having to fast forward me doing this for the next 20 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through that, or just skip that. And then, it's a shame, I'm going to have to get new decals for these things. It sucks to have to destroy the original ones. But there's just no way that I know of, at least, of getting these things off cleanly. So usually what I've been doing is hitting them with goof off kind of stuff, the Goo Gone or whatever, just label remover, and then getting rid of all the adhesive there. I will have to find some replacements for those. I'm sure they're available somewhere. So I'll get replacement decals for those things and put them in there when I'm done. But yeah, so I'm going to finish Scotch-Briting this bad boy, and when I come back, we'll look at doing some body filler on one of the pieces that I've got to do. Now that technique is really very similar, almost identical to what we did before, aside from I'm not covering an entire area. I'm just going to be doing little spot fills. So it's just going to be just a little bit of filler, and then same story, sand it with 80 grit until it's smooth, and then hit it with 150 to finish it off. Right, so I'll see you in a little bit. Anyway, so all 6 of the red parts, the triangle parts, are now sanded. They're good to go. Now I still need to scuff the insides of a few of them, but for the most part, the outside is ready to go. So now I'm going to do some filling work. I just thought I'd show this one piece here that I have in front of me, which is one of the ones I was working on earlier. I believe the one I was working on camera with earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and fix these 2 holes. This is actually the only filling I need to do on this. So as I'm doing this body work, this filler work on, look at that red everywhere. On these, I'm going to be working in real small batches of the filler. I don't need to work with large chunks of filler. It's just gonna end up hardening before I'm ready to use it. Sorry, just getting my Bondo spreader here. So yeah, so I'm just be mixing real small batches of this and working with it in small areas. So tiny bit of filler is really all I'm going to need. That probably is going to be plenty. Which means I'm going to need just like the tiniest drop of hardener. A little bit more than that. Then just like we were doing before. Oh God. Yeah, you know, I love having a garage, but I'll tell you what, projects like this, I mean, anything that involves sanding, it's just so dang messy. Alright, so I'm just loading up just a wee bit of filler on here. And this is actually going to go onto the paint, but the part that I'm actually repairing is completely unpainted, so when I sand it away, it won't be a problem. It's not like it's going to cause issues with the repair. This one on the corner is kind of tricky. I'm actually going to build it up just a wee bit. Even though I'll end up sanding a bunch of this off. but it's such a funky area. I'd rather sand it down and make sure that it's well filled and is a good shape, which I can use the rest of the corner here as a guide for it. And then this was the last little piece here. I think that's pretty much going to do it for this panel. So as this one dries, I will go ahead and start doing filling on the other panels. That's it. I mean, once done with this, I'll do a quick sand in about 15-20 minutes. I can start kind of lightly working with it. I may wait a little bit longer since I built it up a bit thicker over here. So I may give it the full 20-25 minutes to dry before I start working it, and then that'll be it. And then when we're done, that panel is smooth, and the only thing left to do on this one is just finish Scotch-Briting the inside. Alright, so it's been a little bit here, and I've got my two sanding blocks here. Well, first one loaded up with 80 grit, and the second one loaded up with 150. So here's our repair area, and you know, same thing as before, making 45-degree angle kind of brushes at it, and we're going to do large areas to try and smooth this in as much as possible. So this area here, I'm being very careful to follow large strokes along the same line as the rest of this curve here. And that way, when I'm done, this repair will be, well, should be a nice and smooth blend into the rest of the curve. Yes, that's really nice. All right, so that's the 80 grit. Let's go ahead and move up to the 150. Throw some primer over that. You won't even be able to tell it was there. So I have obviously several more of these to do. Luckily, it's not a ton of work on each one of them. One or two have some interesting areas. The one that I was showing you guys before that I had to rebuild, you know, that one's got a pretty good chunk of Bondo there that I'm going to need to smooth and sand. I may actually have to hit that one at least one more time after I'm done with this round of sanding. So that's the most complex sand job I've got left to do. The rest of these ones are basically like this, where it's like, yeah, maybe a dink in a corner kind of thing where I had to do some repair work, but for the most part it's flat, you know, bangs that hit it straight. So I'm not going to bore you with that, but again, I hope you appreciated the update here. Again, I know it's been a little while, so hopefully once we get this stuff done, we can start diving into electronics on these monitors and cap kits and flybacks for all. That'll be fun. So look forward to that in the not too distant future. Really want to, you know, here it's September 1st now, so I really wanted to get all these done this summer. Actually, I wanted to get these done and 720 done this summer, but that may have turned out to be a bit ambitious. That's gonna do me for this video. So thanks for watching. If you want to see more of this stuff from me, please subscribe to the channel. Leave comments. I will respond. And ask any questions about what I'm doing or how I'm doing it. I'm more than happy to go into details if I skipped over something, or you have a particular problem. More than happy to help. Thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers.